We're here in Waverly, Nebraska at Empire Fence and Netting. When we came out here last time, we were talking about putting on a fence training, and this is put on by the AFA. If you don't know what the AFA is, that stands for American Fence Association. So they have teamed up with the American Fence Association and their local chapter of the AFA, the Midwest chapter, to put on a regional training event where we're going to bring companies from all over the country, as far away as Massachusetts, to learn how to better install fence and help people that have maybe never done a particular type of fence or seen something, help get them up to speed faster. This is all about vinyl today. We're going to try and cover each and every aspect of installing several different types of vinyl fence. So without further ado, let's go install. These donuts is what we call them, adapters, whatever you want to call them. But when we're trying to get our posts in the ground when we're driving, we may hit a rock or a tree root or something like that, and we could bounce all over the place. I have adjustment so I can go this way so that wherever the lines, so I can line it up and get it straight in line. These screws are a little small. I would probably use a little larger screws. They'll work for what we're doing. It'll be fine. Don't get too carried away getting them super tight, kind of slow down when you get it. And just get them snug. So then we got the second one. So about 3 feet up from this one, I'll put another one. To make it simple and easy so you don't have to measure. I like to use jigs whenever possible. Let's say this post was leaning like that for some reason. We could actually shove that bottom one out and get it back to plumb so that when the vinyl post is sleeved over, it is plumb. And that's what this slot's all about. I like to kind of go around the outside of this, that way I can, that's what I want to do. Now we go all the way down there. Yep, we'll set these as well. So big goal is to, we'll just, yep, we got screws right here. We can still get them level. Yeah, if you got it. Make sure we're level this way. If I need to come over to the string, I just turn that donut until I'm off center, because if it's all the way up there, that's the center. If I need to come off center, I just have to push it off there a little bit and then rotate it and then double check it. It's all good right there. See, if I rotate it, it's just not quite touching the string right here. So to get it to the string, I just rotate it around here and I pull it off center. So I put a gap right here. Boom. Now we're at the string. So the big thing to remember is all the way up against this side is centered. So no matter where you rotate, it's going to stay exact same. If you want to pull it off center, you have to have a gap here, and you just make that gap bigger and bigger. And so setting the bottom is the easiest. And then use your level to just double check the top, because you only have to check one way now, because I just need to make sure it's just barely not touching the string. I don't ever like to have anything touching the string, having it just a fraction off, because what ends up happening if it's touching the string is everyone's moving it just a little bit and you get down to the end and you're that far off. So it doesn't matter if the post is straight, it doesn't matter if the post is dead on in line. And this becomes really important when you're driving posts and things move just a little bit. All right, so we start with it in the center. We can see that we need to come to the string. And I assume since that one was off, this one's going to need to be off. And then I can just rotate that over a little bit more until I finally get it off the string. And if you did have to use two guys because you were worried about them moving at all, just put one screw in and then two guys can come back and pop the second one in the whole way. Hack and whack, that's buried. Yeah, I like it. All right, so typical is to put your rail in here, then you over insert it so you can get it in this one, and then back it off just a little bit and insert it there, right? Typical. When you have a pipe in there, you can't do that. So what you need to do is cut it
Yes.
We want to be right about there to cut it off.
Just an inch and a half?
Okay.
It's about an inch and a quarter. And it's going to depend, you know, if you move those donuts, that dimension could be different. So you really want to kind of pay attention to that. Right about there.
Cut it my line to the out.
So that should fit better. So you do have to work in one direction. You can't kind of mix and match. Instead of messing with this one that's already got a rail in it trying to spin it, what you need to do is mess with this one. Now you can lift it up if you need. Lift it up, there you go. Now spin it. Then down, boom. Because once you're off that donut, you got all kinds of slop inside that post.
Yeah, you do.
So you can move that thing all over the place. We'll go this way.
We have this one already put in. Now do you come this way with it?
Yep, we'll come this way. Work in one direction. Otherwise you'll end up fighting yourself on it. We slide the rail in all the way at the other end until we hit the post. Then what we're going to do is, because we need to put this in there, we can measure here and see that we're going to run into a post at about an 1.5 inch insertion. So we'll give ourselves a 1/4 inch. We'll measure off here and we're going to actually measure out about an 1.25 inch insertion right there. So that's how far it's going to go into the post. With it between those posts, there's nowhere for it to go. That's why we don't crimp it. We don't do anything else. We just put it in between the posts and it's locked into place. There's no way it can come out. Typically, we would not be cutting it with a reciprocating saw. So now, to be able to get that in there, we just lift the post up. Lift the post up like this, get it off the donut, and we can put it in here, rotate it, and then slide it back down over the donut. There we go. Okay, so that's tight. It's tight fit. And there is no play in this. There's nowhere for it to go. The only way this thing can come out of here is if we kink the rail right here, one way or the other, to get that rail out. We've become very accustomed to setting posts via eyesight. So I really like to look across the top and still verify everything. But if you're not, you can use a string. You can set your string up again. So let's just go ahead and string this top. We'll do it the old-fashioned, easy way. No skill needed. Let's go down with this one because that seems a little excessive. Okay, let's screw this one off. I think it's right there. Did it feel like you got it? Here, I don't know. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, you got it.
You got it. So now all we got to do is just bring those up and then keep them just below the string. I want like a fraction right there. So if you were doing things up over a hill, that's where strings get really difficult because they don't do hills so well.
Yeah.
That's why I like eyesighting, is because I don't ever have to worry about that. Okay. C channel, U channel, I don't care what you call it. It doesn't bother me. The big thing is to get it lined up in the center. If you're off center just a little bit, it makes it really difficult to get. What you'll find is if it's off center, it'll fight going in the slots at the top and the bottom. So what we do is we do top, middle, and bottom. The reason we do top, middle, and bottom is because what we found is this always wants to pull away from the post. You might get it something like that over time, and nobody ever wants to see that daylight. You know, especially with the tongue and groove product, it just looks weird when the entire fence is solid privacy and then you can see daylight at the post. So here's the big thing here. I don't really care what's happening up here at the top of the post. What I want to do is make sure that it's snugged up at the bottom, because the top is going to flex. It's going to flex all over the place. I'm not worried about that right now. Making sure that it's snugged up at the bottom so I can take a good measurement, stick it in here, and realize that yes, that's 2 inches that I need to cut. So this is where you really hurt yourself, like scraping it here, so wearing gloves to do this. What I really like to do is I like to wear or use a hammer. This is a DSI hammer. For those of you unfamiliar with the DSI hammer, that's what one looks like. It also measures. I rarely ever do this, but I will show you the proper tool for the job, and it is this tappy tappy. A dead blow hammer works really good for knocking these things in, and then you don't scrape yourself up. These right here at this post can get very tight, so if you spread it a little bit, it can help if you bounce it and then tap it at the same time. What you want is a really tight fit here. If you don't have a tight fit, it'll separate, and then you'll get these gaps here in the picket, and it'll look funny. Even if there isn't daylight, it just looks wonky. And then at the end, what we'll do is with our rail locks, make sure that everything's pulled together when we put the rail locks in here, so it can't spread apart at the top, which is the most flimsy. I'm gonna pull out my real hammer. There you go, see?
Short stop.
Okay, here's a pro tip. Hold that right there. So everybody wants to try and get it in there first. Don't do that. Just get these started, and the more you start them, and you can actually line that up over the top of that post, even works better. Until we get about 4 of them stuck up in here. Now you can go that way with it and down. Okay. So once you get about this many of them in there, now we can actually lessen that angle enough to get this popped in there. And now we can just be in line and everything starts to go together a little bit easier. But don't try and get those first couple in there and get it in the hole. Just worry about getting these lined up, and then it'll lessen that angle to where you can get it through the routed hole. If you are doing a system like this, it's really important. You can see that we have no gap here, and then we have a almost normal gap down here. While it's all vertical, it always looks better when you're using this type of system if you cut just a little bit off of each end rather than cutting it all off one end. You could end up having half of a picket exposed on one end and not being able to get anything in there, and then you've got holes exposed, and then it just looks really wonky. So cut the same amount off of both ends. These are rail locks. Who's used these? These are amazing. I highly recommend them. We have gone away from notching and in place use these. Because once we get this rail in, we can set them down in here, and then you run a screw through each one of these holes into the rail. And as long as you pull your posts over and they're all sucked together, that fence is not going anywhere. You'll never pull it apart. Still really easy to repair though. Much easier than even trying to get notches out of the post. Just pop the cap off and pull it all apart. Actually, I'm going the wrong way. We need to go. So I almost erred and started putting it in the wrong way. The reason I do it this way is because I can easily over insert it that direction for those of you that may be a little bit new. So I put the end in first towards the direction that's not been built. Then we jiggle the handle. You got it? That's a good way to get your fingernail ripped off. One of my guys found is getting his finger in there when you're trying to run a rail in. Yeah, that hurt. I have pictures of it somewhere. Thing to remember, if you are on a steep slope, like we're gonna come down a slope like this, I'll do it on that side. You can see how far away the bottom is already, and that'll fall out of your U-channel, C-channel, and look funny. So if you're doing a slope, make sure that you cut both ends to match that slope. Work it in that one first. Do it a little bit at a time if you hold it like this. Once you get it down in like that, you can kind of wiggle it back and forth and it'll open up that gap. So once there's pressure on it and you've got it started, you can just, it'll wiggle it back and forth and it just kind of opens up that. It's pretty forgiving. You can just slide it right in on the end. Yeah, there you go. See a little bit of pressure, wiggle it back and forth, and see that had a notch, and you see how loose that notch still was? Those rail locks will hold way better. So with a rail lock on there, you'll never pull that thing out of there. If we left this picket without cutting it, the insertion into the rail is 2 inches. So we'll move it up here to where it's the right height. So what we'd end up having, this is 2 3/8. So right here, not only would we have daylight back here, but the rail will conflict. And so we either have to chop off a little bit on this corner, or we can just take the angle from here to here on those points and cut them all. But you do have to, if you're gonna do a step down like this, you do have to cut all of them at an angle to get it to work. The other thing you have to do is cut your rail at an angle. From here to here is now longer because we've cut that at an angle, right? And that's what's going in here. So there is a chance that if you go down a steep enough slope, which is basically what we're trying to do here, if we go down a steep enough slope, this hole will need to be routed out a little bit, and it's easier to take it a little bit off the top. But you will have to, it's best to angle cut both ends. This is another tip I've learned. It's easier to get the bottom end first. And then, yeah. So rail lock on this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're locked in. Same here. I really like the rail locks. What we find is when you use those, the whole fence just blows over and everything stays together. We already talked about the benefits of making repairs easy on this system versus concrete slugs. We could quickly, easily unbolt all this, pull it up, and as long as the steel is good, put it back together. If the steel's not good, maybe drive another steel post in its place, and even go deeper if we need to, and fix this section in a couple hours. The most expensive part of any fence is the posts and getting the posts in the ground. After that, it's all easy. We've been doing vinyl fences now for 20 years, and they're still standing strong and going good. So, anybody back there?
Nope, you're good.
Because everybody thinks this stuff's garbage. We're gonna see. Now the weakest part on this entire fence is the pickets, we all agree, right? Okay. It almost came apart. Nope. There we go, we got it. Right down here where it's nice and solid. There we go. That's a lot of force. That's not ordinary wear and tear. I guarantee I'll never break one of these rails. Oh, whoa. Edit that out. That was not as expected. I just wanted to see what it'd take. There we got it to blow out. So there's the failure point. And I think one of the things that's hurting us is I don't have my rail locks in here. Rail locks would help tremendously keep this post from rotating anymore, and we don't have enough screws in here either. We should definitely have more screws. One of the other guys suggested that when you're doing this bottom screw, he likes to use trailer deck screws that go all the way through the donut and then into the steel as well. Yeah. Even installing in sub-zero temperatures, I've never broken a rail installing it, and we're usually pretty rough. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching us instruct new fence builders on the techniques used in vinyl fence installation. The driven post method is not the be-all end-all. It's just another tool in your toolbox. So if you're thinking about it, it really takes the right ground conditions. Driven posts here do very, very well. You can see we don't have any rocks. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you like the content, be sure to like and subscribe down below. And until next time, you have a good dang day. We are in Waverly, Nebraska at Empire Fencing. No, hang on. We're at Waverly, Nebraska at Empire Netting and Fence. You might remember this from,
yeah.
It said netting and fence on the container.
That was wrong.
Oh.
Fence and netting.
Cut. Just outside of Lincoln, Nebraska at Empire Fencing and Net, who you might remember when we had the video about
fence and netting, fence and netting, fence and netting. You want me to do this part?
No.
Okay.
When you're working in the field, it's incredibly important to take your vinyl and run it across the ground as much as you possibly can, because Mrs. Johnson wants that textured look, so she wants to see those scuffs all over there. So So that's really important that you take that extra step and you scratch your stuff up as much as you possibly can. If you can expose the white underneath this sometimes, that's really good. The deeper the grooves, the better. She wants it antiqued is the word we use in Jackson, antiqued. Actually, don't scratch the vinyl up, be really careful, especially in this dusty environment, because you can see that there's scratches all over these posts and stuff. That's what Miss Johnson actually doesn't want. I was only kidding for those of you that didn't pick up on that.